Okay, so marijuana seems to be the controversy in the medical industry, because on one instance it is illegal, but on another it is not illegal if given a prescription or in a state that has made it legal. With all of that comes a lot of backlash to people who have been locked up for years selling it as an illicit drug, and for the people who have had experiences with marijuana that have not been pleasant. On the other hand, marijuana has a lot of properties other than just smoking it for a high. I will explain the cons and the pros of marijuana and how it affects can be looked at both ways. So the pros of legalizing marijuana. The marijuana industry in the United States could exceed $24 billion in revenue by 2020. So marijuana can definitely generate a lot of money for the states by selling it, um, you know, making a profit off of it, especially in the medical industry, because the properties of marijuana are so many properties, and they'll definitely be able to make a lot of money off of it. And another pro is that obviously, once again, the medical industry, a lot of pros. So it definitely helps with patients who are ill or have chronic diseases or something like that. So it helps with relief for those types of things. The thing about it is, though, is that it's important that you speak to your healthcare provider, nurse, or doctor about marijuana and the prolonged effects that it can have, especially if they're not used to it, and especially if they're supposed to only take it for a certain amount of time. It is important to speak with them about it, but it definitely does have properties that can help with medical illnesses and diseases. And then, so marijuana also plays a good role in mental health. So the relaxing effects of marijuana are also well known. In the clinic psychology review, they conducted a study, and it showed that it does have really good benefits to people with depression, social anxiety, and PTSD disorder. And that's really good because there are so many people in the world that struggle with all three of these things on a daily basis, and marijuana will be a great use to help them overcome and get over, and just to help them to relax overall, especially you know becoming a substance abuse counselor. It would be important for me to, if someone that I'm counseling is using marijuana, that would be one of the first things I would ask, is, are you using marijuana because it helps you to relax, it helps you to be calm? So that would be, a first question I would ask to them. And then marijuana can be a substitute for cigarettes. So cigarettes obviously, have nicotine in them, which nicotine is very addictive, and nicotine is a drug. And so having marijuana or replacing it with marijuana um, could help decrease the nicotine usage and to help stop the nicotine urge that the body has, had, depending on the years of, um, depending on the years of a person has been smoking for. Marijuana might be able to assist with that in helping them stop with the nicotine addiction. There definitely should be something that can miss marijuana based that should, substitute for cigarettes completely. And then marijuana doesn't just come in plant form; it comes in an oil. The oil is derived from the plant, but it does not contain THC, so therefore it does not give you that high. And so this is interesting because the CBD oil can actually help with epilepsy. So people who have seizures really bad, um, it can help them with the epilepsy and getting them to calm down, and also preventing future seizures, which I thought was awesome as well. Um, these are all just pros of marijuana. And this is not the plants that are grown out in the wild. These are the plants that are grown in different farms and labs that may contain chemicals that could, definitely have a negative effect. But for the most part, it seems like to be working just. And then the cons of marijuana, I have read in the past that it does um, cause for you to lose some memory cells. So this would be an example. A study from New England was conducted in part of a research at Duke University, and people who smoked marijuana heavily in their teens had lost an average of 8 IQ points. So smoking too much marijuana can make you obviously not as smart as you were before. So it is important to watch that intake. And again, that goes back to one of the pros of using it for different medical uses, just as a doctor or counselor or nurse or whatever, making sure that you speak with the patients about the usage of marijuana and how much you should intake on a daily basis. And then marijuana is not like a cigarette. So people who smoke pot do show signs of damage and precancerous changes to their lungs. Even though it's not like a cigarette, obviously anything that you're smoke-wise inhaling, exhaling, or inhaling and holding it in and taking a long time to exhale is going to play a part on the lungs. So even though it doesn't have all those extra chemicals like cigarettes have in it, it does play a part on, it can play a part on the lungs. And that's just basically because, you're inhaling a smoke. And then also too, it could be because of the chemicals that could be in the marijuana that we don't really know about, because all we know is that marijuana is a plant, but we don't really know where it's being grown or who grows it. So that can also play a role on the precancerous changes in the lungs or signs of lung damage. So another con is that marijuana is still legal in many states, but there have been millions, thousands of people who have been arrested for selling marijuana. And now all of a sudden marijuana is starting to be legal in certain states and legal with a prescription, which just doesn't seem fair, because the people who are being locked up are just being locked up for years upon years for not having much marijuana, and some for having loads of marijuana, but they're doing the same thing that the government and the medical industry is trying to do, which is sell the marijuana to make a profit, because marijuana does have a high profit. With that being said, knowing that there aren't many bad causes to marijuana or bad things that happen, such as other illicit drugs, it really is just unfair to those people who have been locked up and who are still locked up to this day, for doing the same thing that they're doing. And so the summary, everything that I've looked up was pretty much interesting and accurate for the most part. And marijuana, they can go either way. People can be pro marijuana, people can be against marijuana. It just depends on what you feel and what your preference is. For me, I'm with marijuana, but not for medicinal marijuana and for legal marijuana, because again, you don't know who's growing it, where it's being grown, and what's getting into that marijuana. So wild marijuana, farmers who are actually taking care of the marijuana, fine. Anything that helps with the body that's natural, I'm definitely all for. So it's just a lot of misunderstanding with marijuana, but you know, you have your pros and your cons. And then these are the references.